Now, Mary Willingham was actually a learning specialist at UNC from 2003 to 2010. Now, she started looking into the reading levels of some of the students in the sports programs at her university. Now, why exactly did she look into that? Well, she started to do that because she kept getting requests from different sports students for tutoring. Because, and during her tutoring efforts, she had found out that a lot of these athletes that had come to her for help couldn't even read, or could only read at a very basic minimal level. There was even a couple that couldn't write. Now, of course, this is not new, and this didn't only happen at UNC, of course. CNN investigation found public universities across the country where a lot of, where a great many students that are in the basketball and football programs, they were actually only able to read up to an 8th grade level. Now, that's pretty sad. Now, they got this data from open records requests from 21 different schools, and it showed an achievement gap between college athletes and their peers. Now, Willingham actually researched the reading levels of 183 UNC Chapel Hill athletes who played football or basketball between the years of 2004 and 2010, and she had found that 60% of those people actually read between 4th and 8th grade levels, and between 8 and 10% actually read below a 3rd grade level.
I mean, I just find it absolutely stunning, but I'm not too surprised. I mean, both my parents, they work as sports teachers at kind of one of the top private boarding schools in the UK, and I know most of the students that they take in teaching physical education, and they think, oh, it's just going to be sport. If I'm good at sport, that'll be fine. And there's a lot of theory behind sport, and a lot of the sports people that go to the school, they're not necessarily the brightest people. And I think it's kind of a culture that starts off when they're young, and they think, well, if I'm the school wanted me to be at the school, they promoted me, they weren't too worried about my academic career, and then they think, if I go to university or college in America, my apologies, just because I'm good at sport, I'll succeed there as well. I know that in the UK, it's our kind of sports, university sports, training and how they give bursaries and scholarships to people. It's completely different to how you have it in America. Like, if you're good at sport here in the UK and you go to a university, they'll give you a bursary, but you've got to get the academic grades. Most universities will ask for 3 A's at A level, or basically to get the top grades. Even though you may be kind of an international sportsman, you may be playing squash internationally for your own country, the universities here, they don't care, because the universities don't make any real money from the sports teams here. But in America, obviously, that's where most of their income comes from. I think it's just a bloody shame.
In fact, I want to get to that point real quick and just say that UNC, where Mary Willingham had actually worked, they actually made $16.9 million off of their sports program. So, and the University of Louisville, which was also cited in this study, made the most, and they actually earned a profit of $26.9 million.
The University of Louisville also just hired Bobby Petrino, who was let go at the University of Arkansas for hiring his mistress and giving her thousands of dollars of university cash. So, but he's a hell of a coach. He's maybe the best coach in college football, and they're going to do well with him. He used to coach there, and he's back now.
And the thing that this shouldn't surprise anybody, because we hear stories, like anecdotal stories, about like NBA players or NFL players or baseball players that were passed through all the way because they were good in high school and their high school team made money off of them, and they're like, even as early as junior high school, they're passed through just because they're good at sports. But it's such a downer that these are like they're not only top like sports universities, but these are like top universities that cost like, tens of thousands of dollars in tuition, and these guys are getting a free ride or a partially covered ride depending on how good they are, and they can barely read at like a 5th grade reading level. Like, they're taking like rock and roll history for like education, for an education that your like class valedictorian would borrow, like all that will go into like hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt to pay for. Like,
and Sean, think of the public funding as well.
Yeah, and you got the public funding, and I mean, and and the thing is, I feel bad for the athletes too, because not all these guys are going to go pro, right? So a lot of them are just going to, play out their college days, and then they're going to realize that they've been getting a free ride their whole life when they graduate, if they graduate. And a lot of them are just going to be straight up assholes, because if you live a life with no consequences, you're probably going to turn out to be an asshole. So like they're going to be an asshole, they won't know anything, and they're going to, but they will have had a chance to play on national TV for like 4 years. So it's like, I feel bad for the kids. I don't know if I feel bad for the other students at the school, because like those programs bring in so much money that I'm sure that they pay for more students to go there than it costs for their individual scholarships. But it's just kind of sad that our top universities are full of people that don't know anything.
It's really sad. I mean, I think like 2 points there. If like they did a study, they found out like with the universities, they made, you said nearly kind of $27 million. If 80% of that or 90% of that was kind of sent back into like the academic side of the university through research and getting better lecturers and training and stuff, fine. And then the other 10% was just improving their sports facilities, getting maybe better sportsmen so they make more money next year, I'd be fine with that sort of ratio. But if they're spending kind of the vast majority of that income that they get through their sports teams back onto the sports teams, then they might as well just become like professional training grounds for sports teams and just get rid of all the education. And I think, you said as well, the reason why they have to do that is because just their public funding is getting cut and they've got smaller budgets and they've got to find income elsewhere. I mean, there's been stories of a number of schools in America that I've read about that, they'll get sponsorships, so kind of advertisements on the school bus and things like that, just to try and get more money in. And it is mainly down to kind of Republicans who are just trying to slash education budgets.
And it's not even the money that the programs bring in profit. It's also the money that boosters give them, right? Because if you went to that school and your team is good, you're more likely to donate money. So we had
the alumni.
But we had a situation, an unrelated story in Texas, where they hired a new coach, and one of the alumni was pissed that they hired this coach, and the reason he had so much influence is because he only donated $100 million to the university. So these programs bring in a massive amount of money outside of how profitable they are on an individual level. So like, I can understand that maybe these kids like playing sports is like for the greater good of like the university, but I'm just saying but it's not for the greater good of the individual kid that's not going to go pro, or the kid that would go pro but then doesn't know anything and will be bankrupt like 3 years after he retires, or the kid that goes pro and is a total asshole in the pros and is like like Pac-Man Jones, like getting arrested every now and again and not receiving any consequences after his arrest. Like you have like a lot of the problems for these just kids, and it's embarrassing for like our elementary schools, because there has to be a point where you started playing sports and people realized you're good, and that's when you were passed through, right? And I think the level that these guys read at on average is like 5th grade. So from 5th grade on, we have like corrupt public school teachers that are passing these kids through based on nothing, and I think that's the bigger problem. Like it's like trying
right. To build on that, Sean, I just want to build on that by saying that Marion Willingham, she admits to helping. She admits to helping them cheat, signing her name to forms, that she said that she witnessed no NCAA violations when she actually did. So she's like, yeah, this happens, and I was a part of it. So this is how I know. And going back to another point that I think Stephen made, about the coaches, right, or about reinvesting into the school. I don't think they reinvest in the school. They invest in hiring new coaches, just as Jordan pointed out. These coaches, I think they're some of the highest paid personnel in the university. So no,
they are. Sorry to cut you off, Jeff. They are, but I've got to jump in now and tell all of you why you're wrong. But as you know, because that's what I do. That's why I'm on the show. The coaches are, there's a great little chart, a quick Google search will show you that a coach is usually your highest paid state employee in all but 2 or 3 states, something like that. Although in one state it is a hockey coach, and I'm willing to forgive that for some reason. But anyway, Sean kind of got at this, but anyway, the boosters are really where that money comes from. The money that the sports programs make does get invested back in the school, usually in the form of scholarships. Although albeit a lot of that's athletic scholarships. But
Yep.
the new facilities, all these nice stadiums, stuff like that, that's the boosters go. We're paying for that. Now you can still say that it would be better if these alumnus or alumni would come along and donate this money for for a new science building rather than a new football stadium. That's a completely true thing, but that's not a problem with the college. That's a problem with the American psyche. And that's also the other thing too, is that there is a bigger problem here, but it's not so much a problem of sports worship as it is of what Americans think education is. We have shifted to where now in America the purpose of education is to prepare you for employment. It's the idea of a liberal arts education is not really there
That'll
anymore.
get you laughed. That'll get you laughed out of the room. Oh, liberal arts.
Right. Like I went to a liberal arts school, and I'm so thankful for it. But it was also a small, Christian school of like 1,500 people. Your big state schools are no longer liberal arts schools, almost entirely across the board. And so with that approach, if we want to criticize that approach, then we can. I think there's some really good criticisms out there. But but we're also showing a hypocrisy there. Because we would never have this conversation about bankers. Like, these kids are going to school, the ones that we're talking about, the ones who are getting passed along and can't really actually make the grades. These are not your average athletes. These are your athletes, one, in your big sports like football and basketball that make money, and two, these are the athletes that are good enough to go pro and the schools want to keep them there. If you are in a smaller sport, you're not getting this advantage. Actually, the college I went to, our swim team, which was was a pretty solid swim team, pretty good, had the highest GPA in the conference, like year after year. And the reason why was because there was no scholarship money for swim team. So all of our swim athletes were there on academic scholarships because that's the only way they could afford to do it. And if they lost that academic scholarship, then they left the school and were no longer on the swim team. But these are kids who are going to school to play sports. That's what their major is. They are studying in football, they are studying in basketball, because they're going to go make millions and millions of dollars in an industry that's worth billions and billions of dollars. And that's just like somebody who goes to college to study banking or somebody who goes to college to study engineering. You're there to make money. That's the American approach, is to be prepared for your job. And if you're talented enough to be handed a diploma for what you can provide the school on the playing field, then you're just like any other major, except we don't allow sport to be an official major. Now, so if we want to attack a problem here, it's being manifested right now, as this abuse of the athletic system or the academic system by athletes. But the problem is with, what we view college as, or what we view education in general as, that it's, just all about being able to make money, and it's not about, becoming a more complete person.